NBL TV. See it live.
Hello everyone and welcome to It Goes Off. It's that time of the week where we address all the major issues following round two in a little segment we call Tick It Off. And Grantley, one of the issues that we need to talk about is the scoring going on in the NBL. We had 4 games in round two, and in 3 of those games, one of the teams had 59 points or less. Started off with the Cairns Taipans Wollongong Hawks game. Cairns only were able to put up 58 points. Wollongong really didn't blaze it away either at only 68. New Zealand 73 beat the Adelaide 36ers 59, which is unusual for the Sixers when you look at their history, usually one of the more prolific scoring teams. And the Townsville Crocs only managed 58 points at 29% field goal shooting against the Perth Wildcats, who had 82. And it was only the Sydney Kings and Melbourne Tigers game that looked more like we have become accustomed to. The Kings
very giddy combined 167 points.
85 to 82.
Yeah.
Is this great defence? Is it just that had a bad week of shooting? What's your explanation for some of these lower scores?
Well, I think there's probably some repeat offenders in there. I think Cairns is probably one of the repeat offenders, a recidivist. And I think perhaps you've got to look, at their style of play. Perhaps it's the offensive structure that maybe they're leaving things too late in the shot clock. So instead of getting a good shot, they're just getting a shot. Hopefully things can turn. Teams can be, running the floor a bit more. I guess be a little more free flowing, and maybe even just shoot a better percentage.
Well, I think a lot of it's got to do with the defence. I think there's some outstanding defence being played right across the league, and clearly the coaches have a point of emphasis in that area of the game. For me, though, I think teams are trying to get up and down the floor a little bit, but the teams that rely on their half-court structure, that run it and are able to execute like we've seen in the past, just doesn't seem to be the same. It's breaking down to a pick-and-roll situation very early on in the half-court sets, and outside of the good defence, maybe the style of play that some of these teams are trying to play not quite gelling at the moment.
Do you think we have in the league, and I thought it was very interesting that you were taking the line of defence, but do you think we have in the league the players who can actually break down their defender one-on-one and get to the basket and make that high percentage finish?
Well, I think they're there, but right now the defence is winning that battle. And shooting percentage is down. I mean, 29% for the Townsville Crocs. They are a much, much better team than that, and just weren't able to get it going. So you will have those nights from time to time. But it's something that I don't necessarily see it as a major concern, but it is a changing of the way as a competition we're playing.
Yeah, look, I think so. And I think the bottom line is, you know what? If you get a good contest, that's the essence of the game. If it's 48-49, it's been a great contest. It's been close. You've got down to the last play of the game.
Well, we need to pay respect to the Sydney Kings and the Melbourne Tigers, because they set the league on fire with a combined 140 points. And the Sydney Kings, a little bit upset that, Grantley, we didn't mention them last week at all in the show. But this week, we look at the way they're playing, and in particular, their 2 imports. The import duo of Corin Henry and Darnell Lazar, they have been very, very good to start the season.
They have done very well, and Corin Henry, NBL Player of the Week this week for his effort against the Melbourne Tigers. They combined for 48 against the Tigers. I know one of us here had the slows on Darnell Lazar coming into the season, but he has proven you wrong well and truly.
Well, I'm not sure that was... I can't recall ever making that comment, Grantley, but...
I believe you may have.
There's no doubt that the combination of the two, I had a good look at Darnell Lazar, and if that was in fact said, which I put a little question mark against that, but he is very good and reminds me a lot, not quite in the same calibre, but reminds me a lot of Chris Williams, who was a former MVP, played for the Sydney Kings.
Oh, he stayed the one season.
And he's got that good mid-range game. He instinctively goes to the glass. But if Sydney Kings come to town, you might want to just go out of your way to see Corin Henry because he's...
Well,
they list him at 5'9", I think. I reckon he's 5'6" at best.
Oh, I can't
5'7".
wait. I can't wait to meet him.
He's a little fella.
You drew the parallel with him and Cal Bruton.
It is, and I think the way he plays, he can score, he's got good range, three-point range, but the thing about Corin Henry is he looks like one of those guys that if you're his teammate, he's a good player to play with because he can find the open man and he creates nightmares for the defence because of the way he can get to the basket and not necessarily to finish, but to dish off. But when the game was on the line, I like the way that he took control of the game, come up with some huge plays. So full credit to the Sydney Kings and Shane Heal doing some really good stuff offensively to get those guys involved.
The Kings look like they've hit on import gold so far. But you look at those guys, then you look at Gary Irvin, Larry Abney. They only combined for 14 points for the Crocs.
Bit of an exclamation, an asterisk next to them because first game, they'd only been in the country a few days and only had a couple of training sessions.
That's all right. Bobby Locke was only in the country for 24 hours and he still had 50.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so they've had 14. Okay, my point being, those guys are coming back to the league. Henry and Lazar, brand new to the league. They're coming back to the league. Then you go out west to Perth and you've got Lish and Redditch. And I know Redditch is technically not an import, but in essence, he is their second import. They've been there, they're bedded in. You know, is there a magic formula to what you get from your imports and how you handle them and what you do with them?
Well, I think a lot of imports go through a bit of a honeymoon stage when they come in because the rest of the league hasn't had a good opportunity to really break down their strengths and weaknesses and go through it and how defensively they're going to attack it. So there is an element of that, but I guess that's why you give special credit to guys like Sean Redditch, and I know, like you say, he's not an import, but he did start as an import and his game has evolved. And Kevin Lish, this is his 4th season, league MVP last year. Those guys you sort of give a little bit of extra credit for because we all know what they do and everyone's going out there to try and stop them, but they've shown enough talent that they can break through any of the strategies that opposition coaches are trying to throw at them.
I think the thing, while we're just on Redditch as well, that a lot of people probably forget that he was originally at New Zealand and got cut.
Do you reckon New Zealand just would get a twitch every time they hear the word Sean Redditch? Because that was a mistake.
They possibly might, but they've won a couple of championships in the meantime. They're not going to worry about it now.
They've done very well. And also, you've got a different type of philosophy. You look at what the Adelaide 36ers have done and gone with CJ Massingale, who has spent a long time in Australia playing with the Knox Raiders, gets his opportunity in the NBL, but really, so far from the way we see they're playing him, a role player. Yeah,
very much a bit part player, if you like. But I'm sure, like you say, he's been here a long time. He knows Australian basketball. He will be able to, work his way into the rotation at some stage. But out of all the imports so far this year, new, old, returning, is there anyone that's jumped up and grabbed you?
Well, the two Sydney imports, the combination of the two, they look early stages like they're going to be something special. Also,
even though you didn't think they would be.
No, that is incorrect. But anyway, Seth Scott is the other one for the Melbourne Tigers. I think that have a big fella his size, it's harder to get the bigger guys to come down under because you're competing against the rest of the world and they're a lot harder to find. But it looks like they've found a good one in Seth Scott as well. So we'll see how that unfolds. Grantley, one of the other issues that I wanted to get your opinion on is Julian Khazzouh. The word out is that he's been playing in Europe and apparently he's been released from his club. Major talent, just had a fantastic run with the Sydney Kings. Coming back to Australia, the clubs have a point system. Do we need to find a way to tinker with the rules that if he is available, that we're actually going to let him come back and play in the NBL?
Very good question.
I thought so.
I'd say there's a few nervous players around the league right now.
Well, I wouldn't like to see that. I wouldn't like to see him coming back at the expense of getting someone cut. Well, but I think that there's got to be a
mechanism that allows that to happen?
Correct, because ultimately we want the best talent available in this country, no matter where you come from. But even above and beyond that, when you've got an Australian fella out there that may be looking to come back to Australia, we certainly can't have rules to stop talent playing in our competition.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think once the season starts, you can't really change your rules that is going to advantage one team over the other.
We can't change the rules, but we should have something in place that deals with these types of
There could well be, but I just think someone's going to have to Someone might have some points. They're going to have to juggle their roster. They're going to have to see if they've got cap room. All those sorts of things. They're going to have to do it as they do. But I do look forward to seeing the agenda for the next Basketball Australia board meeting.
Well, it's more the NBL Commission that needs to deal with that. But it's an important issue that needs to be addressed because you...
Well, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go?
Well,
Straight back to the Kings?
Well, I'd like to think that they should have at least the first right of refusal on him because they've done a lot to develop him. They've invested in him over a number of years. So I think they've earned the right to have the first dibs at him anyway. But who knows how that's going to unfold. But wouldn't it be great to have a player of Julian Khazzouh back in our competition? And we also, Grantley, need to get some feedback. We want this to be as interactive as we possibly can, and we want you out there to join in the conversation. And the best way to do that is jump on the NBL Facebook page, or you can hit Grantley Bernard or myself on Twitter. I'm Andrew Gaze 10. You are
Grantley Bernard.
Grantley. It's as simple as that. Grantley Bernard. And hit us with your questions. We're going to answer it on the show. And just to give you a little incentive to get amongst it, we've got some unbelievable prizes. And this week, prize is that
it's huge.
It is as good as it can get. We have got a 12-month subscription to NBL TV. Now, if you haven't got your subscription, make sure you get it. You get to see every single game in the NBL through online. So you can watch it on computer, you watch it on your mobile device, or you can watch it on your tablet. And it's $79 for the year pass, $19 if you just want to buy a month. But make sure you get amongst it, or send us in a question and you might win the opportunity to get that service.
$79 is the price tag, but you know what?
Speak on it.
Priceless.
Brings a tear to my eye. Hey, that's all we have time for on today's show, but we need to say thank you to those that assist not only bring this show to the people, but to bring the competition to the people. And it all starts with our naming rights sponsor, iNet.
Connect better.
10
and 1.
Spalding
and for.
And Virgin Australia. So make sure you jump on the NBL website for all the scores and all the goings on throughout the course of the season. And don't forget www.nblstore.com.au for all the merchandise, all the club merchandise and NBL merchandise. They've got some fantastic stuff that can be purchased online. Well, that's all we have time for today on Tick It Off. We look forward to your company tomorrow on the #1 podcast in the world for the iNet NBL Championships, and it's called It Goes Off.